Everybody is talking about attachment theory. TikTok, Instagram, podcasts, therapists, dating coaches. Apparently, everyone is either anxious, avoidant, secure, or disorganized. People introduce themselves with these labels as though they're describing their eye color. I'm anxious. My ex was avoidant. My mother was disorganized. The problem is, that's not what attachment theory was ever meant to become. Today, I want to separate science from social media because attachment theory isn't really about dating. It isn't even about relationships. It's about survival. Before we learned words, long before we learned language, before we learn manners, before we understand right from wrong, our brains are asking one question: am I safe? Not intellectually, biologically. Every infant arrives completely dependent on another human being. Food matters, warmth matters, but emotional safety matters too. Will someone come? Will someone soothe me? Will someone notice? Because for a newborn, being abandoned wasn't merely frightening. For most of human history, it was fatal. In the middle of the 20th century, British psychiatrist John Bowlby began asking a different question. Instead of asking, what's wrong with people, he asked, what happens when a child cannot depend on the people they need most? His colleague, psychologist Mary Ainsworth, expanded that work. She observed mothers and babies, not in therapy, not in laboratories, in ordinary moments, and later through a carefully designed experiment called the Strange Situation. The results changed psychology forever. Children weren't simply forming habits. They were forming expectations about people, about love, about themselves. Here's what social media gets wrong. Attachment isn't who you are. It isn't your personality. It isn't your identity. It's your nervous system's best prediction based on your earliest experiences. If comfort arrived consistently, your brain learned the world is probably safe. If comfort was unpredictable, your brain learned something else. If I don't work harder for love, I might lose it. If comfort never arrived, your brain adapted again. Depending on people hurts. Better not depend on anyone. These aren't character flaws. They're survival strategies. This is where attachment theory intersects with the daughter wound. Imagine a little girl. She isn't being beaten. She isn't starving. She simply learns that her emotions are inconvenient. She cries and is told she's too sensitive. She asks for comfort and receives criticism. She succeeds and receives silence. She fails and receives shame. Day after day, year after year, her nervous system quietly records every interaction, not as memories, as expectations. Love becomes something she performs for instead of something she receives. Children don't decide, my mother doesn't love me. That's too terrifying. Instead, they reach a different conclusion. There must be something wrong with me. That single belief can quietly shape an entire lifetime. The people she chooses, the boundaries she cannot hold, the apologies she gives, the criticism she accepts, the love she believes she deserves. Not because she is weak, because her nervous system adapted exactly as it was designed to do. Here's where attachment theory ends and the daughter wound begins. Attachment theory explains how children adapt. The daughter wound asks why so many mothers could not offer emotional safety in the first place. Because many of them were once frightened daughters themselves. Women raising children with nervous systems that never had fully, truly experienced safety. The daughter who learned, "I am too much," may someday become the mother who unintentionally teaches the same lesson. Not because she's evil, not because she planned to, because pain that is never recognized is often repeated. This is where conversations become uncomfortable. Understanding is not excusing. Recognizing why someone became who they became does not erase the damage they caused. Two things can be true. Your mother may have been deeply wounded, and she may have deeply wounded you. Those truths are not enemies. They exist together. The remarkable thing about the human brain is that it never completely stops learning. Psychologists call it earned secure attachment, not because childhood changes, it doesn't, but because healing changes what the nervous system expects. Safety, consistency, repair, relationships that don't require performance, boundaries that don't require guilt. Slowly, the brain begins writing new expectations, not overnight, but over time. Attachment theory was never meant to become another personality quiz. It was meant to answer one profound question. What does a child learn about love when love is inconsistent? The daughter wound asks the next question. What happens when those lessons are passed from one generation of women to the next? Healing begins not when we forget our childhood, but when we finally understand it. Because the nervous system can learn something new. And perhaps, for the first time, love no longer has to be earned. I'm Deborah Lee, and this is the Daughter Wound Project.